More big storms will be coming to the United States over the next several days, and these are going to bring even more severe weather to areas like the northern and central plains, and eventually into the Midwest and the Ohio Valley as we go throughout the later portion of this week. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down everything that you need to know about these severe storms, and also an update on Hurricane Beryl, which is continuing to barrel into the Lesser Antilles this morning. So as of right now, we have a lot of showers and thunderstorms across the southern tier of the country. A lot of this is just the remnants from yesterday's severe weather event, which was mostly just damaging winds across the northeast. So overall, some showers and storms still out there throughout the morning, but that'll start to clear out. Eventually, we're going to start to see more showers and thunderstorms coming over into parts of the central and northern plains later today, which they've already started to line up with some showers at least out there. But later today, we're going to start to see that threat for severe weather increase. We'll talk more about that here in just a second. Here's Hurricane Beryl, which is really getting very close to the Lesser Antilles right now. Catastrophic impacts are expected this morning, despite the downgrade that we had overnight to a Category 3. At the time recording this forecast, it is a Category 3, but it could get upgraded again as it is undergoing a eye wall replacement. It is expected to bring some significant storm surge, very high winds, and as well as the potential for flooding rains to areas in the Windward Islands. And then eventually it'll move off to the west. From there, it's questionable where it'll exactly go, but more than likely the Yucatan Peninsula would be the next area where it will make landfall. So that's going to be something to watch for over the next several days, and we will have more videos and live streams to cover that if need be over the next few days. Now, in terms of the threat of severe weather today, we do have a large threat for severe weather across the central and northern plains. We do have a slight risk for severe weather from North Dakota back into Nebraska, where damaging winds, hail, and the potential also for a few tornadoes will be a possibility. Notice there's a hatched area for damaging winds today. That is where we could see damaging winds as high as 80 miles per hour out of a storm or two. Some large hail will be out there, but that's really not the main concern. A bigger concern, though, that we will have to monitor very closely later today for will be the tornado risk. We will have a potential for a couple or even a few tornadoes, and I'm not ruling out an isolated strong tornado in today's environment. It's another conditional one, but we do have a potential for an isolated strong tornado. Elsewhere, an isolated tornado or two will be possible from South Dakota and Wyoming back even into western Iowa. So make sure that you have a tornado action plan in place and multiple ways to receive alerts. Now, as we go into tossing trampolines on Tacos Tuesday, we have another risk for severe weather, and you'll actually notice there is an enhanced risk for severe weather. We haven't seen one of these in the central plains or even back over into the Midwest in at least about a week now, so something that we're not seeing too much frequently, at least recently. We have an enhanced risk across parts of southern Iowa and northern Missouri. In addition to that, we do have a marginal threat that goes from Wisconsin back into the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle, where the potential for damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes will all be a possibility. Beginning with the wind threat, that is why we have an enhanced risk, is because of the damaging wind concern. That'll be primarily across northern Missouri, where there will be a potential for some significant damaging winds at times. The large hail concern, it's a little bit lower, but there will be a potential for up to about 2 to 2.5 inch diameter hail, so make sure that you're protecting vehicles. The tornado risk overall is at a 5% tornado risk. I don't think this is going to see an upgrade, but I, again, would not rule out another isolated strong tornado. It's another conditional risk tomorrow, but it's something to watch for. And unfortunately, this tornado risk is in a poor radar coverage zone, which means that radar, it's basically a big radar hole. We have two radar sites, one to the north, one to the south. It's really in between the two, so unfortunately not really good radar coverage tomorrow, but we'll probably be live for this, so just make sure you're subscribed to the channel and we'll give you up-to-date footage on that. And then we have a tornado risk all the way from Colorado back into central Iowa, which is a low-end tornado risk overall. Now, today's tornado risk is going to be a relatively short-lived tornado risk. It's not going to last very long, but where it is going to be the greatest will be in parts of Nebraska. Look at all that red and yellow. That is representing basically a lot of juice in this environment today for there being tornadoes. We're going to have a pretty good amount of spin in the atmosphere, but overall it's going to be a very short-lived duration. It'll probably be from about 3 or 4 o'clock up to maybe about 8 or 9 o'clock tonight across parts of central and southern Nebraska, primarily along Interstate 80. Back over like near Kearney, for example, that is where I think one of our greatest target zones basically today will be for tornadoes. So definitely make sure that you have a tornado action plan in place. Once we go later into this evening, this threat will start to shift to the east towards the Iowa and Nebraska border, but overall it's going to be a much lower risk, and any tornadic activity will be mostly QLCS based tornadoes. Now, as we go into the timing for today, showers will be out there this morning. This will probably stabilize the atmosphere for at least the morning hours, but by the afternoon it's not going to make much of a difference, because we are going to be watching for probably 1, 2, maybe 3 discrete supercells to fire up here across parts of Nebraska and maybe extreme northern Kansas, and these will be mostly moving to the and northeast, any storms that get going in this environment could produce large hail, damaging winds, or even a tornado or two. And again, a strong tornado cannot be ruled out in today's environment. Even though it's a low and conditional risk, it is something to watch for. Once we get closer to 6 to 7 o'clock, that line of storms will start to fire off and really form. That is going to be mostly a wind concern. Any discrete supercells that are still out there by about 7 o'clock or so will kind of get absorbed by this line of storms. And then eventually by 8 to 9 o'clock tonight, this becomes mostly linear across eastern Nebraska, eventually moving into parts of Iowa, and with predominantly a wind concern. And then once we go into the overnight hours, it's mostly just rain out there. There could be some localized flash flooding with how much rain has already fallen in these areas like Iowa, for example. And then as we go into Tuesday, that'll lead to our eventual next severe weather risk. Now back over in the northern plains, it's going to be a messy setup today. We're going to have storms fire off probably around 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon. These are going to quickly move off to the east and northeast, and these will be predominantly wind and hail. There could be an isolated tornado somewhere in here, maybe even back over in Wyoming, but overall it's just going to be a very clustered together area of showers and thunderstorms where there's not going to be a whole lot of separation between the storms. So I think overall mainly wind and hail throughout the afternoon and early evening, and then we're eventually done with mostly just rain over very saturated areas as we go into late tonight, which means flash flooding will be a possibility in areas like Minnesota. Once we go into tomorrow, that tornado threat shifts to the east and will move into parts of Iowa and Missouri, where we are going to have another corridor for the potential for a few tornadoes. That'll be from southern Iowa back into parts of northeastern Kansas, where again, damaging winds, hail, and an isolated tornado or two will all be possibilities. So here's the future radar. Again, for today, showers and storms will arrive late tonight. By tomorrow morning, there will be some storms out there. By lunchtime, we're eventually going to start to see a bit more of a line of storms develop then. But what we're going to be really watching for are two different things. We'll have the potential for a line of storms, which is expected tomorrow afternoon. This will be mostly a wind threat with a couple of tornadoes being possible, but any discrete supercells that fire off in front of that could also produce the potential for a tornado or two. Once we go into late Tuesday, this continues to move eastbound. A lot of these storms will be rotating. Any ones that do rotate will produce the potential for an isolated tornado as this continues to move east, but the main concern will again be damaging winds and large hail with this system. Now, beyond today and tomorrow, the weather pattern looks extremely active still across a large chunk of the United States. The jet stream will continue to stay meridional, which means that we're going to have big dips in the jet stream and also big increases in the jet stream when it comes to ridging, which means we're going to continue to see multiple storm systems throughout the middle and end of the week. It looks like 4th of July might be a bit of an active one. Once we go into the weekend, we are starting to see maybe 1 or 2 more storms enter the country, but most computer models right now beyond July 9th are starting to show a trend where we might see a massive death ridge develop, and we might see one more large storm before that happens. But overall, a death ridge usually does entail that we have a quieter stretch of weather when it comes to severe weather. So let's hope that's the possibility that comes out of after this week. But with that said, this could bring some record-breaking high temperatures and also very dry conditions to some areas. So we'll continue to keep you posted with the latest on this particular weather pattern. Over the next several days, we are going to continue to watch for more storms to impact the country. Once we go into Wednesday, we are going to be watching for a pretty large area for some scattered showers and thunderstorms, basically from the Central Plains back into the Ohio Valley and Northeast. Wouldn't rule out some severe weather on Wednesday, but overall the risk doesn't look super high yet. Once we go into Thursday, though, we might see a localized area for a tornado risk or even a hail and wind risk as well across parts of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. And overall, this will start to move to the east as we go into Friday into Saturday, so more showers and thunderstorms for the East Coast. An active weather pattern more than likely as well for both Friday and Saturday across the Southern Plains and the Southeast. And then once we go into next week, I do expect a few more big storms, but overall by the end of the week, I think things will start to quiet down quite a bit by around July 10th, maybe a little bit after that here for the month of July. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.